Okay, so let's start to go into our underhook series, and just a quick introduction on how we can get here and why we'd want to get here. First of all, the underhooks, as I was telling you guys before, once I'm this deep on my partner, especially if I have two underhooks, there's nothing that he can really do to get away from me in the position. He's kind of has to engage me. So, you know, he can start to frame me maybe, yeah, or try to pummel me or something like that, yeah. But he's got to stay with me, that's the point. And at any point, I can elevate him easily. It doesn't matter if the guy's, 300 pounds. If you're this far under somebody, you can elevate them very easily because his hip's on top of you, guaranteed. And you can also like throw him forwards, like with your arms, like super strong if you really had to, like almost like. So now you have the leverage of the rock, your whole body, your legs, and your arms. How you're gonna get to your underhooks a lot of times, because your partner's just not gonna, naively like open his arms so you can just swim inside, or even just, this is still, not always gonna be there where you can just knock his hands out of the way and then go in. How you're gonna get there a lot of times is by like climbing the ladder, so to speak. So what I mean is, you might start on a 2-on-1 and your partner's yanking his arm like crazy. Like he doesn't want you to get there. You can pop his arm up and then make it to the underhooks, right? Or maybe even he's like pushing my hand over here and he's yanking his arm. This arm gets yanked out, but now I had the chance to pummel and make it to the underhooks. If you're on your collar elbow control over here and you can force him to post, so you try to hook sweep. Didn't work, he posted out really well, but now you had the opportunity, because his arms was open, to climb to your underhooks, sit back up and get to your offense from your underhooks. So any chance where you guys can, force a post, pummel inside obviously, or just like climb up that ladder, you're gonna find opportunities to get to your underhooks. And when you make your underhooks initially, come a little closer, sorry. What you want to make sure is that your hands over here stay high, and you want to grab the gi, okay? You don't want to be low. It's too easy for the guy to pummel you, okay? And locked hands is okay, but the problem is your elbows don't elevate as high with locked hands, and it's a little bit of a rigid structure. So a good guy is still going to be able to pummel you or frame you over here. Yep, can you show them the frame? Yes, over here, and start to maybe like break this grip, and you're gonna lose the control, okay? Whereas if I'm here and I'm grabbing his shoulder blades up like this, and he's starting to pummel me, it's very easy for my elbows to elevate and follow whichever way he's gonna pummel. And the whole time, what am I doing again? I'm keeping my shoulders to his shoulders, my head and my chin next to his head. This way there's like no space between us, no room over here for him to pummel. If at any point I feel my partner getting ahead of me and starting to pummel over here, just make him post. Just put your back on the ground, make him post. If he doesn't post, if he gets inside over here, let's say he makes a frame and he doesn't post, well, then he's going over, okay? So it's a great position to get to. You have a lot of attacks that we're gonna look at in a second, and a lot of different takedowns and entries and sweeps, submissions that you can do with that control. But that's a good overview on the underhooks for now. Okay, so now let's start to go over some sweeping options we have from the underhook, okay? And I'll do this real quick, the basic one, but then we'll actually go into some specific gi ones over here, right? So when I have the underhooks, and I'm gonna be looking to go into my basic butterfly sweep, I can look to change and get that arm position the same way how we were in the collar elbow, right? So either I keep his hand at my hip and I'm making that grip on the seam, I push it in between, right? And I just am blocking that post over here, and I'm keeping his shoulder kind of tight to me over here. What's important is on the over and under position, okay, is that you're winning the hip fight, all right? So what's going on over here is if we both have a true over and underhook, this is a 50-50 position, okay? And if Danny takes me this way with his underhook by punching his underhook up and my hips start to go this way, I'm gonna have to start to go into some different things. And I'm probably getting a little bit behind in the position, okay? So what I wanna make sure is that when I'm here, I'm winning the position by closing my elbow over his hand, and then this hand, the elbow is opening, okay? So I have one elbow low, one elbow high. And you can see I'm already getting him going that direction. Also, if you'll notice, I'm changed from that to that hip. So if I was square, I'm gonna change to that hip. So I just kind of scoot to that staggered stance, right? And then now from here, just like the collar and elbow series, I'm either shooting my leg through, like a baseball slide for a front hip escape to get his hip under my hip, or I'm pulling him on top of me, crossing that foot, and then carrying him over with a single leg extension. You want to make sure, again, especially on the when you're pulling your partner on top of you, you're going underneath, that you're not throwing your back flat on the ground. Okay? If I throw my back flat on the ground over here, this is actually not good. In fact, if you end up in this position, I'd like to see you recover back to the seated position. So sometimes, you know, your partner puts you flat, you dug the underhook though, he's still not high on this underhook over here. What you should be doing is resitting, okay? So you should be using a hook extension as you go to sit up and sit yourself back up in the position and start to win that angle, okay? One more time. If you even needed to, you can find your foot on the hip and do the same thing. So use your foot on the hip to sit up, and you start to win that angle. You can see I'm in a good position now to start to sweep him, okay? If I had to fall towards my back, I'm only falling towards my back for a second, but then I'm changing to my shoulder. Okay, so if I needed to get the weight off, the weight on top of me rather, I can do that with an initial pull, but then I'm changing to that shoulder at the last second, and I'm carrying him over nice and high, okay? Also, when I'm here, in this position, right? If I was doing that baseball slide, same thing. I'm sliding, but I'm not throwing my back on the ground. I'm sliding. I'm going right to that shoulder, carrying him over. And the same things apply that we worked again on the collar and sleeve one, right? So I have the option, if when I'm here, my partner goes in post, I can work the short hook sweep and kick him out, right? So all the basic concepts apply. Just realize that there's that battle for upper body positioning and hip positioning going on when you're in that under over. You're not letting him get to your armpit. You're not letting him take you to that other hip, and then you have all your basic sweeping options still there and available. Okay, so this next control that we're going to go over is probably my favorite control from the underhooks. It's called the rear lapel control, okay? So when we're here with my underhooks over here, if I'm able to get this lapel fed behind over here to the other hand, this is the rear lapel control. And this control is so strong because it provides an anchor and a control over both my partner's shoulders, both sides of my partner's body with one grip, okay? So obviously double unders, I have control of my partner's body, but the issue is, you know, I have two arms, he has two sides of his body, and it's kind of even, right? Whereas if I can feed this lapel to the backside, now this controls this shoulder, and because I have the underhook, I also have control of this shoulder. So it affords the control with one arm, or with one grip, with one rear lapel grip, okay? Now, how you're gonna get there, all right, is important, because whenever you're taking your time to like feed lapels and stuff like that, again, you don't have like a solid grip to keep your partner in front, to keep the guard position in front, okay? So you have to think about setting this up from a conservative position. So obviously, we saw that with the 2-on-1. You can also do it from the closed guard, where if I had him broken down over here and I was able to just little by little fish the lapel out, and get the position, and then start to work into the grapevine entries to bring my butterfly hooks inside. That's one option. But the double under option is a great option to enter into the rear lapel from. Let's look at why, okay? So when we're here in the double unders, for the most part, I don't want to be feeding lapels when I'm seated, okay? When I'm seated, as I start to feed, you can see his hands can start to make grips, right? His hands can start to push my knee, grab my hand like he was doing, or just start to make distance as I'm trying to get this lapel out, right? But if when I'm here and I put my back on the ground with my two underhooks and I keep him on the ground, it's very difficult now for my partner to start to like move around, okay? What's important is I don't want him to start beating my knee lines, okay? So my two knees clamp around his hips. If ever he starts to like sprawl or something like that over a knee, this is gonna start to get me in a little bit of trouble. So can you come back? So when we're here, if I feel him start to sprawl over the knee, I just kind of bring my hip to the problem as he goes. Yeah, no chance, right? So I just keep my hook attached and I bring my hip to the problem. If he gets a little bit of a head, no problem. Knee to elbow, right here, and I re-scoot and I reclaim the position, okay? Since I have the underhooks, his arms can't really do much in terms of passing, unlike when I was seated. So can you try to do something with your arms to pass? You can't. Why? Because whenever he tries to do something, I force his hands to post on the mat. If his hands don't post on the mat, he's going to get swept or he's going to eat the mat with his head, right? So whenever something happens and he's starting to move too far ahead, I just get his hands to just go on the mat. So what I'm doing is, as I'm getting the lapel out, if he goes to move now, like pummel me with this hand, I'm getting his hand on the mat. Go again, I'm getting his hand on the mat. And now I got the lapel out. Now I have the position to reach very far around and feed the back of the lapel and get the rear lapel. Now from here is when I can start to sit back up, either with two hooks shooting forward and reset, or I can start to extend him away, get the foot on the hip, and sit back up using the foot on the hip like a leg press and reset back up. And then from there, we're gonna see our offense with the rear lapel grip. Okay, so let's go over some techniques from the rear lapel, okay? So I'm here with my partner. I already made the control that we're talking about. And now we can start to go into our sweeping options from here, all right? So one great option that I have from here is to stay on the underhook and still hit my butterfly sweep. So what I'm gonna look to do is make a grip different than what we've been used to. Up until now, I've been tucking the arm inside and underneath my arm. Now, I'm gonna look to block the post, bring it above my arm, okay? So the grip that I'm looking for, again, these grips have to be very specific, like 1 inch off and you miss, and you give your partner the ability to post. So when we're here, what I'm looking to do is, instead to grab underneath, I'm gonna be looking to grab my hand, my wrist around almost towards the front, right here. And what that does is it allows me to pull that shoulder and also elevate my elbow against his hand to keep his hand off of the ground, okay? So when I'm here, now I can start to go through my sweeping options, okay? So there's nothing new. We have the same options. I can start to pull him on top. I can start to work the single leg hook extension, crossing my foot. And now from here, I can just pull this arm, lift, 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 and just carry him over. The other option that I have, this is probably one of my favorite ones with the rear lapel, is when I have this grip over here and I make the control, my foot sneaks out. So rather than going to a lifting short hook sweep, I'm gonna hit my short hook sweep from an initial seated position. So instead of lifting and then finding, if you post, and then finding my foot over here and sweeping, what I'm gonna look to do instead is I'm gonna look to take my foot out right away and bring it right on his knee. Once I get my foot on his knee, I'm gonna stomp and then carry him over with the hook, turning him through like that, okay? One more time. I'm here in the position. I have the rear lapel. I have the control over here, right on the front part of the gi. This one works great if your partner's like backing away. So your partner's backing away, that gives room for my foot to come out, okay? Another option is, even if he's a little bit closer, his knee is closer to me than his hip. So what I can do first is put my foot on the hip if I have a flexibility issue. Then what I can start to do is push him back and slide my foot down. Okay, that allows me to make it to his knee. So anywhere way I can make it to that knee. So whether he's backing up, whether I did the foot on the hip method, or whether I just took my foot out. I'm gonna just stomp, lift, and turn him through, okay? You can also use the rear lapel to do the traditional over here, where you're tucking the arm inside. Keep your shoulder tight to his shoulder, making sure he's nice and tight to you, and you can go into the single leg extension. You can go into your hook sweep, your short hook sweep with the over control on that side. But all your basic sweep options from there, from the rear lapel, are there. And then we're gonna look at some other attacks that we can do in a little bit. Okay, so let's look at a takedown option from the rear lapel. So you're gonna start from the butterfly, right? Obviously we're gonna end up going into some sort of a heist, but the rear lapel is nice because it keeps you so secure, it keeps you so tight. Different than, you know, sometimes you're just hugging the guy here. Even this grip starts to give up, but the grip on the lapel doesn't usually give up. So you can really trust this grip to get you to the positions of control that you need to get yourself to the top position in attacks, okay? So when you're here in this position, you're on the rear lapel, sometimes what's gonna happen is either you're on the under grip to block the arm, or you're on the over grip to block the arm, like we were saying, and your partner's scooting back like so much, and you just feel like you can't connect your hooks at all. Like his shoulder's weighing too heavy on top of your shoulders, okay? You're doing a good job controlling the distance, keeping yourself tight, but it's just too heavy. That's gonna be the time where I go into that basic heist. So I tuck my leg and I start to heist up over here. Okay, if I needed to, I can even swing my both legs, almost doing like a 90-90 heist too. Whichever one's easiest for you to get you up into the guy. And then from here, I'm gonna look to stab my foot, my knee in between his, over here. And almost like I'm doing like a judo throw from my knees over here, I'm gonna pull him across my body. I'm gonna pull him across and take him down. Then once I take him down, I can just get myself in a good side control. Be careful because you're so deep on this lapel. Sometimes the guy might have momentum to roll you through. So make sure once you get over here, you just sag your hip. You keep your hip heavy. This way, once you land on top, it's hard for him to re-roll you through to the top. So again, so I was on that rear lapel over here. I had that grip. I made that specific grip on the underside over here. He started to walk back a lot, but he created a gap where I can come up into him. Once I come up into him over here, I'm just gonna look to stab my knee in between him to load him up. And now from here, I give him a big turn, we're gonna take him down. So in one motion, I'm here, knee comes in. We're just gonna take him down and just sag my hip so he can't roll me through the position. Okay, so now let's go over a reaction, what happens if I have the rear lapel control and my partner starts to post up on me over here, okay? One thing that's important to note, guys, is whenever you have a control and the post is blocked, it's very unlikely that your partner's gonna post on the opposite side. So what I mean, even if I was collar elbow over here, it's very unlikely that Danny's gonna post over here. Why? It just makes it easier for me to go into my sweeps, right? Same thing on the rear lapel, right? If I'm here in the position and he posts over here, he's just making my life easier, right? So most likely he's gonna be posting on the side that I have blocked over here, okay? Just as a note. And also, whenever your partner posts or starts to stand up, posture up a lot, you always have the option too to, you know, if he starts to post on me over here, can he start to post? I can always start to go to his legs over here, start to go into different entanglements, or start to hug his leg over here and start to go to my offense from there. But it's always good to see if you can force the offense and force the attack from the control that you have, because making more steps is probably just going to take more energy, and probably if the guy's doing that, maybe he has better balance in that position. So it's always good to use the control that you guys have. So we're going to look at that now. So when I'm here in that rear lapel over here, and my partner goes to post his leg up, and I'm underneath this arm over here, I'm going to look to see if I can take my partner down using this leg, okay? So let's rotate for the camera over here. So when I'm here and he goes to post, I'm gonna bring the scoop grip over here. So similar to what we did in the other move, where I bring my chest and my head over here to his knee, that's what I'm looking for on this grip. Remember, don't just reach with your arm where there's a huge gap. If he sprawls this leg, you're gonna lose the position, okay? So when I'm here, I bring myself close. Now that I bring myself close over here, I can start to see how my partner is gonna react, all right? One thing that could happen in this position is as I start to pull him on top of me, he could try to like post his hand. So he's gonna post his hand like so. When that happens, I'm gonna keep my back out of the ground and I'm gonna extend my hook on the bottom. Once I extend my hook on the bottom, I turn the rear lapel and I turn the leg like a wheel. And I finish the sweep. So even though his upper body gives him base, his lower body's completely taken out, and I'm turning his hip over, he's gonna still go over and I'm still gonna be able to get the sweep from the position, okay? So one more time. I have the rear lapel, he posted. I bring myself to the problem. I'm gonna start to go to the sweep, like pulling him back. Most of the time he's gonna post. Obviously, if he doesn't post because your elbow's high enough, you're just gonna be able to just roll him over, right? So a good guy's gonna post. So when you're here, as he goes to post, I extend the hook, and now from here, I'm driving up off my foot, and I'm just carrying over. So I'll show from the other side so you guys can see the drive off the foot. So I'm here, I make it to the leg over here. As he goes to post, I'm scissoring the leg. I'm changing to the 90-90 drive. I'm just carrying him over with that scoop grip for the sweep. Do one more time. Rear lapel, he goes to post. I bring myself to the problem. I can even come to a heist and just start to carry him over. Last one. Rear lapel, he goes to post. I get close. I pull him back, he posts. Change to 90-90. Drive. And just carry him over with the scoop grip. Okay, so let's go over another control with the lapel that we can do with the underhook, okay? It's gonna be the lapel pinch. So in no-gi and in wrestling, we have something called like a pinch headlock that you see guys use a lot. And I realized that you can kind of get a similar control with the lapel over here. So same thing, you can imagine that you were in the double unders, so you had time to take the lapel out, and anytime he started to do something, you always get his hand out as you're fishing, until now you're able to change and pass this lapel around like so over here, okay? So before we were doing the rear lapel, okay? This time the tail of the lapel is gonna come out, go around his armpit, and feed over his trap and go against the back of his neck, okay? What this does is it gives me a lot of control over this arm. The reason why on the rear lapel, Rotate a little bit for me. This elbow goes up high, but the arm on this side over here is still relatively loose, Danny will tell you, okay? That's why, you know, we had to look at sweeping variations where even though he posted the arm, we were still able to sit him to a hip and sweep him, right? But when I'm able to change to the pinch lapel over here, Danny will tell you that this arm, ooh, you okay? Yeah. Danny will tell you that this arm over here is a lot tighter. Okay, I just heard like a pop from him trying to free his arm. That's how tight it is, okay? So because that arm is so stuck over there, you can start to look at more sweeping options with that pinch lapel, okay? So when I'm here with the pinch lapel, I have the same sweeping options that I had with the rear lapel. Like if I got the arm over here, sorry. If I got the arm on this side, right? If I got the arm on this side, I have those same options, okay? But because this arm is more under my control, I have the options now to do those same sweeps on the other side. So this arm can go deep around over here, and now from here I can start to work the same options. So I can go into my short hook sweeps, kicking him over without my back touching the ground. I can start to go into my cross hook sweep. I'm sorry, my single leg extension hook sweeps where I cross my foot. I elevate the elbow over here, and now I'm just gonna start to elevate and take him over. So this lapel gives me more control to sweep to this side, okay? And then from here, we can start to work off of different attacks with our lapel entanglements and different submission attacks, but I just wanted to highlight the lapel pinch as an option to sweep the other direction. Okay, so sometimes when you're working these, the pinch lapel or the rear lapel, what's gonna happen is when you're over here is your partner's gonna start backing up and putting this hand on the ground, okay? And if he puts his weight all the way towards this way, it's gonna be very difficult for me to sweep him this way. Even if I had the pinch lapel, the better one, even if I had my elbow up over here, my ear tight, everything nice and close over here, if his weight's this way and this guy's way bigger than me, it's gonna be hard to get him that way, okay? Same thing on the rear lapel. If I'm here, you know, I get a little bit more control of his body over here, it's gonna be hard to get him that way. I can't get the scoop grip or anything like that. But when you're here and he's scooting this far back and you're having trouble pulling this arm in, chances are you can change to a submission attack, right? So there's always this principle throughout jiu-jitsu. If your partner's hard to sweep, they're easier to submit usually because their body, their limbs are getting extended further away and more openings are gonna be there. If they're more tight, they're gonna be easier to sweep because they don't have the base, right? So as he's harder to sweep, I'm gonna look to change towards the submission. So what I can start to do from here is place my foot on his hip. And with that foot on the hip, that's gonna save the space for the distance. And since this hand couldn't go for the sweep, instead it's just gonna push now. So instead of trying to pull it in, I couldn't get it off the mat, it's gonna push. Now I'm gonna fall to the side that I have the lapel control. I'm just gonna lock the triangle over here. Okay, so let's do another angle. I'll use the pinch. So here, I was here in this position, his hand's on the mat far. There's no chance I'm getting him going this way, no chance I'm getting him going this way, foot on the hip. Other hand changes to a push, so make sure that hand clears. Okay, once I change that push, I'm gonna fall to that hip. My leg swings on the outside and now I can start to get into the triangle. Okay, so from here I can start to go into different attacks, which we'll talk about in a second. But if I land in this position where his arm's on this side of my body, a lot of times I'm gonna be looking reverse triangle. Of course, if your partner squares back up, you can go into the triangle that we went over before. But if I'm here in this position and my hip's kind of stuck a little bit underneath, I'm gonna look to go to the reverse triangle. So what's gonna happen is I'm gonna control his head. My hand is gonna come underneath and I'm gonna start to pivot myself around the angle. Once I pivot myself around the angle, my hip, my thigh, jumps over his head. From this position, I can start to pull the figure 4 in, and now I finish just like any other triangle. Pinch, lift my hips, pull the head down, and I'm going to be able to get the tap on the reverse triangle on the position, okay? So again, rear lapel. I'm here, he's backing away from me. I'm having trouble keeping that shoulder connection. I'm having trouble pulling him in. Foot on the hip, fall to that side. Lock up the triangle over here. From here, I can start pivoting myself around the corner. What's important is my knee on the reverse triangle is gonna go towards the mat. So an inverse towards the mat. So I can either pivot myself there, or I can pull myself there by going underneath his leg. And now from here, hip comes up. I grab my foot to adjust. My thigh is more or less over his head, my hips into his neck. I can pull, pinch, and squeeze, and get the tap on the reverse triangle.